All right, is everybody ready to say goodbye to 2020? Because that's this CIRF report. Welcome, everybody. I'm Chris McCleary for an energy report for the week of December 31st, 2020 through to January 6th. And this is the week that's huge in terms of, all sorts of things, especially the presidential election. We'll get into that. The political scene could be in upheaval as we go in through this week. I'm not a big political person, but it's hard to ignore the clear politics that are happening in this world and just jaw-dropping political shenanigans. Okay, so in this CIRF report, what we do is we triangulate for the energies. That's what this slide is representative of. I'm going to explain why these circles are the way they are. And then we're going to get you one main influence to look out for this week. It goes from Thursday to Wednesday, January 6, 2021. And then we're going to triangulate again for the solution. All right. And that's towards the end. That's the most important, in my opinion, the most important part of this CIRF report is towards the end is the solution. So if you don't have time to watch the whole thing, at least slide that little video thing all the way to the end or near the end, or at least the back half of it, so that you can get what behaviors you should be focusing on for this week to maximize the energies that we're talking about here in the initial part. All right, high congruency score. What we have is the purple circle here is the astrology. The astrology is all over the place. We have T-squares, grand trines. We don't have any full moon or new moon or anything like that, but we have a Venus trine Mars. And that's indicative of this big fellowship social thing. And so that's the blue circle. The blue circle is the I-Ching, and it represents about a third of the astrology. It's a big one. It's a big trine. It's a big, energetic, fiery trine because both Venus and Mars are in fire signs. So it's a big deal. Then you have the green circle, which is the collective unconscious, the Dreambots. It has three main memes: awakening, destruction, and tradition. Now, so this is sort of like the Great Awakening. And out of just having a Great Awakening implies that there's confusion. And so what I don't know is how much of this overlap is really happening. In other words, what I'm seeing is out of the awakening, we are growing in numbers, in congruency. We're seeing it all laid out. Everything is becoming more transparent, which is indicative of a Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius, which is disclosure. It's hard to get anything done secretly. There are fewer secrets. Ideally, no secrets. And onward we go in the world of disclosing what's happening in the political realm, in the technology realm, in all sorts of realms. Anyway, all right. So fellowship is coming from the awakening. That's what I've got here, and that's why I've got a little bit of overlap. But how much are they overlapped? It might be bigger than what we're seeing here. And of course, it's all overlapped with the U.S. presidential election still. It's not over. In fact, hasn't even really started. I guess theoretically it started November 3rd, but we have some gates in here in this week. In this CIRF report, we'll talk about some of the gates remaining for the U.S. presidential election. And with that, we look at the overall overlap. It's pretty tight, but it's the cohesion that develops from the awakening of the confusion. All right, so cohesion in the confusion is the general gist of this. And you might as well call that the Great Awakening. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. We're going to talk about the Dreambot next. Okay, if you are not subscribed, make sure you do. If you're watching this over on Rumble, get over to YouTube. It's still going. Now there's no telling how long that's going to last. because we do talk about controversial stuff. All right, here's the Dreambot. So let's zoom in. Dreambot represents the collective unconscious via the collective dreams. What is everybody dreaming about? Well, annoyed, shred, house of cards, missing, clean, like Mr. Clean, blur, collapse. That's very destructive, and that's the red arrows, destruction. The blue arrows is awakening, which the top word is awakening. And then we have tradition in the green, which is like ritual, ancient, temple, that sort of thing. So what I thought to put in here, you might disagree with that, but in order, it says awakening to the destruction of tradition, which is very, very commensurate with the big picture of Jupiter, Saturn into Aquarius. They're a couple degrees in there now, still conjunct technically, not perfectly in a line, not in the same spec of, in the same general area of sky, but a few degrees off. So that's what we have in the collective unconscious, but we also have linguistics, and it says awakening temple ancient cities. So I don't know if that means that maybe there's some importance of an ancient temple, or maybe there's a destruction of that which creates the awakening, something like that. Who knows? But I just thought I'd point that out. I'm not predicting anything with that necessarily. Let's talk about, well, first, did you have a big yang week last week? I think we've had quite a bit. Think about what yang is. It's like the sun is the epitome. So fire, well, Nashville bombing, there's a lot of speculation on that, like such as this silly passport that supposedly was untainted near a huge blast site, as well as well, there's a lot of anomalies, okay? We also had New Mexico power outages. We got two different wars going on basically in Congress. We have the relief bill that they can't agree on, and we also have a whole election debacle that is ongoing, and we're going to talk more about that. And how about this for our Yang week? This is like the epitome at a bigger level. Straight out of sci-fi, scientists achieve long-distance quantum teleportation for the first time. And it goes in there. It's not like we teleported humans, but they have these little particles that they somehow instantly transition to a different space and time. Not time, different space commensurate with the time. So it was a big yang week individually, but at a collective level, and this doesn't even scratch the surface of all the stuff that have been coming down. In general, January 2021, welcome to the most squares I have personally ever seen in a month. And it comes to a head around the 20th. As you can see, I'm going to make this a little bit brighter. This is where all the squares happen, right around the 20th. What's on the 20th? Oh, the presidential inauguration. What do squares mean? As you're going to see in the charts, squares are, well, up here, tension, pressure, conflict, power struggles. Can you see what's happening? Look at these reds in the overall chart for January that run all across the month of January. Some of these are conjunct, but most of them are squares. We have Saturn square Uranus, Jupiter square Uranus. Uranus has got a lot of squares. That's a pressure to change, a pressure of unexpected change. Then we've got Mars square Jupiter. And Mars, a bunch of squares on Mars. And Mars is a conflicted anyway. Mars is very defensive. Mars is powerful warrior. And when you kind of keep him in the corner, what does he want to do? Just really break out. Now, add to that Mars is in the very last portion of Aries, his home. And so he feels the best in Aries, but he's about ready to head out into Taurus, where it's like things are slower now and very much more earthy, much like no fire left. So it's slower and maybe going kicking and screaming. So that might be an additive thing to this tension. conflict, pressure, power, struggle. All right, that's the overview. Let's get into the specifics. Thursday, the 31st, last day of 2020. Can you think of a better way to end 2020 than not just a T-square, but a double, even quadruple T-square? If you really want to analyze this, it's layered T-squares. You've got 3 with the moon transiting. Remember, the moon transits the fastest of all the planets. Other than, say, the part of fortune, but that's not a planet per se. I mean, moon's technically not a planet, it's a moon, but in astrology we consider it one of the planets. Part of fortune is just a point in the sky. It's an equation. It's a theoretical place, and it moves commensurate with the distance between the moon and the sun, the angular distance. Now, so you have a lot of oppositions here with the moon, and then you have lots of 90-degree angles over here, and then you've got 2 90-degree angles over here. But that doesn't even include the black moon Lilith. With black moon Lilith, the untamed fire gal, she might be the female version of Uranus, although she's a point in the sky too. It's deceptive, it's unexpected change, and they're right together. They are connected together. A lot of people are scared of black moon Lilith. None of the astrology energies are good or bad, positive or negative. It's just an energy. It just is. And this energy here is just wild ass, unexpected change, maybe deceptive change. And then it's conflicted. So not quite yet, but Mars is going to enter into a conjunction with Uranus, but we're not quite there yet. And so you've got these double overlap T-squares. A T-square represents a trap, and the trap is black moon Lilith, Uranus, and Mars, depending on which trap you're talking about. It is fortunate to go look on the opposite side of the T-square. It's fortunate to just be opposite of this trap if you can remember to do it, which is going to be, and just happens to be part of fortune over here. So let's go with it. Part of fortune is very fortunate to be in Libra. Even though there's nothing here, you can force yourself to be more relationally sound, understanding, harmonious. Libras are good at just getting along, even to the point of ignoring, but they're also justice oriented. So don't forget about justice, equality. You know, I was talking heavily earlier about Aquarius and how it's not so much of justice. These are air signs, but Libra is much more oriented on equilibrium, balance, and justice is a big one. Got those legal scales in Libra. So that's just for this day. That's just for the last day of the 31st. That's the last day of 2020. Then what I wanted to cover is Mars trine Venus, both in fire signs. It is a fiery connection here. This is the epitome of the male archetype. This is the epitome of the female. And so sexes are in harmony, but it's fire. So a fire Venus, a Sagittarius Venus is very passionate, can be very seductive, but not sort of a secret seductive like a Scorpio, but an outward and very impulsive. But at a general fellowship level, like the I-Ching suggested, this is where that is coming from. So the fact that the I-Ching brought that out says that everywhere else is pretty much conflict or conflicted, and the only easy energy is this Mars and Venus, and it's both fire and it's trine. And so very much togetherness, cohesion, seeking that social outlet, especially when all the other energy is conflicted and pressurized and not going back and not exchanging easily. Okay. So there's a lot there. I know. male and female. I talked about all that stuff and social gatherings and whatnot. I think your tendency, at least on the start of this, is to have that social. I mean, that's probably the majority of people are thinking that December 31st, New Year's Eve, is a time for social gathering. But I'm here to tell you that this energy, the overall context of the week, is more of an out of the confusion coming realization that we are one at more of a collective level, not like a festive thing, although that matches December 31st, like a normal New Year's Eve. It's not like as many people are going to be going out and doing those things because of the COVID knee-jerk reaction. All right, moving on to Friday the 1st. Good news. Mars and square Pluto is aging out finally. And what that means to you is that you're going to have some less personal resistance to getting stuff done. You're going to have less confusion on yourself, less internal confusion on what you need to be doing. Now, because Mars is having a lot of squares with Jupiter, Saturn, and eventually with Mercury, this can produce a sense of, a higher level need, because it's like you getting started on a project and you don't want to. That's the initial feeling. But then because you don't do it because you see the resistance, then the problem grows. And that's exactly what this multiple square is. And in these squares coagulating together are getting to a climax on, drums please, January 20th. It just grows and grows and grows. And before you know it, the whole sky is all squared up on January 20th. Can't make this stuff up. January 20th happens to be the inauguration day. So I just put that on your calendar. A lot going down on Earth, but a lot happening in the sky all throughout January. Now, one thing to note here is that as Mars gets out of or getting closer to the end of Aries and entering into a conjunction with Uranus, Black Moon Lilith starts taking off. There's a fast separation happening. There's 4 degrees away from here, so technically they're conjunct. So this is on the 1st of January, still a unexpected feeling, and anything could happen sort of a thing. I'm not going to say bad or good or anything like that, just unexpected change. Or both of these are change agents. And what you're going to notice with Black Moon Lilith, and I may not mention this ever again in the week, is that it goes out of conjunction and quickly ends up in Gemini by the end of the week. All right, so what is happening on the 1st? Well, I mean, obviously the new year, we bring in the new year. But this man talked about something that everyone's going to unexpectedly find that goes effect January 1st. And that item appears to be the price transparency rule goes into effect January 1st. Interesting. Oh, and what does that have to do with, that has to do with health? One thing I forgot to mention is Chiron. At around midday, Chiron happens to be on the ascendant. Excuse me. But I don't have aspect lines drawn. But it is, if you notice this, 5 degrees Chiron, Aries, 5 degrees Aries. And you have a sextile to Jupiter and Saturn. So we have a new age of healing. We have a new Aquarian transparency. Remember that? Remember Aquarius is disclosure, and there's less secrets. It's all out in the open. That's an opportunity for healing to be this, because it's a sextile, Chiron, sextile, Jupiter and Saturn in transparency region of Aquarius. So magical how this thing goes into effect on January 1st. Price transparency. Basically, it says there's not going to be any surprises anymore. You're going to be able to go look on a website and see how much you're going to have to pay, and you can compare prices. I think the concept here is that competition will drive these prices down and be more affordable. So who knows? There might be a lot more that I'm not thinking of there. Saturday, the 2nd. Look at this. It's a grand fire trine just as Mars is entering 8 degrees conjunct with Uranus. You can see Black Moon Lilith now 10 degrees out, no longer conjunct. That doesn't mean that change doesn't happen, because we got Mars going into Uranus, and Uranus all about disruptive change. Even if you are guessing right, Uranus then will change it to something totally unexpected out of left field. Mars still with a bunch of squares and getting conjunct with Uranus at the same time. So we have a sort of a be careful what you ask for, because Mars wants to get stuff done and Uranus wants to throw wrenches into everything. Uranus also brings about insight and eclecticism and freedom, and that's that sense of things. But Uranus is more of an air. Its home is Aquarius, and not doing so well in Taurus. So change still happens, of course, but it's more of in the material sense. So probably less airy mental insights. But the big news here on this day, on the 2nd, is the grand fire trine. And everything that we talked about with the Venus trine Mars is here, and it's on emotional steroids because it's all fire. And fire wants to be seen, it wants to be recognized. It doesn't want to hide. Doesn't care. It doesn't care what people think. Basically, I'm out here in the open. Look at me, recognize me, and impulsive. And it can be a downside if you don't use that properly. So unfortunately, you have this sense of impulsiveness, and you might get yourself into a behavior that has consequences, because the next day is a grand Earth trine. And so we got this like the sequence of instant karma, because while on the 2nd you had this energy of just go, and now you have to feel, Earth signs, grand Earth trine is about experiencing. It's about your 3D reality. It's about what's here in the real world. Well, you've created that with whatever you did here. I would have rather seen it in reverse, because Earth signs are planners. If you get the Earth sign first, you can kind of feel where you're at, get a baseline, plan a little bit, and then you get the fire and go do it. But so it's a little backwards here, in my opinion. So be ready for that. Be ready for the 2nd. Have a plan before the 2nd. So when you get impulsive, you already have a plan and you just go do it, and you get it done, and it's great. Because on the 3rd, you're going to have to sit in whatever you did on the 2nd. And this is sort of a slow day. It's a slow energy. It's very practical. And you could find yourself being very nitpicky on that day. And so you're not going to be nitpicky on the 2nd, that's for sure, with all that fire. Just anything goes, and you feel impulsive, and you have this wild energy in you. Not to mention all the pressure here that's collectively growing the pressure cooker in humanity. So anyway, sorry to go back and forth here, but what's happening on the 3rd? Well, the new House members take their seats. Isn't that interesting? On noon, anyway, it just says noon. Oh, wow. That's Wikipedia has already got the winner of the presidency on there. Are you surprised? I'm not. But anyway, that's not final yet, even though Wikipedia is calling the presidency determination final. It's not, as you'll see here in a couple days. Anyway, the new House members sit, and we have apparently, if I remember correctly, you guys correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, I think there was 27 positions in the House up for grabs. The Republicans switched and got every 27 of those positions, apparently. And I don't have to be right, so correct me if I'm wrong, please. Okay, so one final note here as Mars gets even closer to Uranus. It's the fiery, masculine, disruptive change. And you might see that because it's a lot more Republican in the House, and they take those seats on the 3rd at 12 p.m. All right, Monday, the 4th. We're going to have disruptive thoughts, transformative thoughts. We have Mercury is going to conjunct with Pluto. And we have the moon or your emotions in a fall. So they just don't, you may not even see your emotions. They're there. Everyone else can see them, but you may not have access to them on the 4th. Say that probably the 3rd and 4th. You don't know what you're feeling, kind of a thing, because moon's in a fall in Virgo. Don't know how to use your emotions to be discretionary. You don't know what to think. It's hard to ascertain confused, ambiguous emotions. Very hard. Don't know what to make of that. But the most important thing here, I believe, to be Mercury conjunct Pluto. And these are very transformative thoughts. That makes a lot of sense if you think what's happening from the 2nd and the 3rd and all the disruption there. And now your mind has to assimilate all of it. So it makes sense that you're going to try to do that with your rebirthing thoughts, if you will, transforming thoughts, instead of your emotions that are occluded and you're not having real good access to those. It'll be normal. Now we get closer to the final day of the week on the 6th, but this is the 5th. This is Tuesday. The part of fortune gets here and eclipses the sun, but we have a couple of interesting aspects. You have a sextile, Sun sextile Neptune. That is right here, Sun sextile Neptune, and the part of fortune as well. And you also have Sun conjunct the part of fortune. Part of fortune is going to have this sensation of luck, of fortune, and things maybe not even going well, but it feels like it is going well. It might even feel unusually grandiose that day. In Capricorn, feels like grandiose in terms of what I can get done. I probably wouldn't sit down and plan out, even though that's kind of what the energy in Capricorn is, plan out a couple years of identity for myself, like my career and my financial goals and all that stuff, because you might be a little bit too grandiose. You may not be realistic enough. I'm not saying it's bad. I just probably avoid planning out into the future with this, because that part of fortune will quickly move past the sun. So what it is now is just becoming into gratitude is, I think, the point there. But is gratitude an easy place for Capricorn? Not really. Capricorn is kind of like the carrot on the stick, where you can't ever get to the carrot, but keeps trying. That's the Capricorn energy. So I would think take a break on the 5th, pause and breathe, and get into a sense of gratitude on this day. It is fortunate to be yourself, so tap into that. On Wednesday, this is a big day because now I don't want to go into great detail here, but you've got supposedly like the Pence card. You've got other options as well. You've got someone in the Senate who is already committed. I think he's from Missouri, committing to. Anyway, I don't remember the words. I'm not a politician, so contesting the electoral things, and you're going to need someone in the Senate and one person in the House. Apparently, you've got dozens in the House that will contest or committed to, anyway. And the Senate, you need at least one, and now you have one from Missouri. So that's very interesting that it is going to be a T-square later on in that day. You've got millions of people descending into, well, potentially millions, I don't know for sure, of people supporting and cohesive and fellowship. This is what the I-Ching said. That's interesting. All the roads point to January 6th, from the political scene that you see in the 3D reality, and also the astrology, at least until the 20th. January 6th is the gate. This is the day. And now it doesn't show it here, but the moon's going to transition into a T-square in the evening of January 6th, and you're going to be trapped in your thoughts, as well as okay, so Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, Pluto, even the part of fortune, which I don't have aspects to. But basically, this is at noon. This chart is for noon. Fortune lies with those who transform. That's the Pluto conjunct part of fortune. Now, this is the last of the transformation of the status quo in terms of Pluto's effect on Jupiter and Saturn. So Jupiter and Saturn are kind of going off on their own. Yeah, Mercury will be there too for a while, but it's all in Aquarius, and they're together, and they are making a very optimistic sense of, I can't say new is in here because we don't have Pluto anymore, but it is changing. Anytime you've got Saturn going into a new sign, there's a new sense of the status quo. And this one is about Aquarius. It's about freedom, disclosure, releasing secrets, etc., etc. Your thoughts will be there shortly in the week following. But right now, fortune lies with those who transform. Now, out of that transformation could come the solution, or the I-Ching, which is fellowship. Hexagram 13. One note here. Let me take away the highlighter. Look at all the yang lines again. We were one yin line away from another yang week. So I find that incredible. No change lines. So what that means is the influence of fellowship is also the solution, according to the I-Ching. Okay, so this is the influence and solution. Hexagram 13. When communal or tribal bonds unite a group of people, great success is possible. But such bonding only develops if personal interests are subordinate to virtuous human relations like open communication and empathy. My gosh, I'm already over 32 minutes. All right, the broader the perspective, the greater the good that can be achieved. And the greater the potential good, the more powerful the support behind it. A spirit of cooperation steadies the boat for good of all, though it does help to have a beautiful island of high ideals to row towards. That's interesting analogy, considering what picture circulated on social media recently with a beautiful island and two people rowing in it. Weird. Learn to respect the power of diversity, for a community's strength lies not only in its numbers, but in the diverse skills and collective resources of its members. With a unified group solidly behind you, even difficult enterprises can be undertaken without great risk. I want to highlight this because those people who are being strong and going against the mainstream grain or the mainstream media, I would say that the majority is not with the media, but I would agree that it's the silent majority. We can tend to get afraid of, well, even being in a unified group. There's a lot of people who are afraid to go to Washington, D.C. on the 4th, 5th, or 6th. There's even hotels that are shutting down out of fear. According to this, it is saying, because you have a unified group solidly behind you, even difficult enterprises, that would be a difficult enterprise, being there in Washington, D.C., to protest, to be a part of history. Probably the biggest day in American history. It might be ever. It might be. And when it's all said and done, might be the biggest day in history. But when you are there, even the difficult enterprises can be undertaken without great risk. So I think it's a go. If you can and you can support and you want to, I would say go. All right. For the solution on the sidereal chart, let's get our highlighter back out. And remember what I said about the 6th. This is the biggest pivotal day. So I went ahead and used that day, 12 p.m., to plug into our calculator. And we have Mars at the closest place of conjunct with Uranus of the week. And we also have the Venus trine Mars. According to the I-Ching, this trine is the fellowship, the hexagram 13. It is. It's getting together for a purpose. Mars wants a purpose. Mars wants to carry out a mission. And so we take this, it's on the cusp of tropical Aries and Taurus. It goes into Rave Mandala number 3. And then it ends up on the cusp of Pisces and Aries. So we'll just read hexagram 3, but we're going to concentrate on Venus because it is more about togetherness, the Venus aspect. And she is in hexagram 11 of the Rave Mandala and over the galactic center and Ophiuchus. This is the sidereal. So we got that fun to read on the final chart. But let's talk about the 2 hexagrams from the Rave. These, I find the Rave to be right in the mix of in between the influence and the solution. It's a lot of times it is the synthesis of the 2. So hexagram 3 is the gate of ordering. It is the sacral potential for mutation is empowered. This is a gate of confused energy. It's amazing how the confusion was showing up in other places, and it synthesizes here in the Rave. Individual expression that through example changes and mutates those who have contact with them. This is cultural mutation. So we have possibly, maybe not an awakening according to this Rave, but we have some sort of big change, mutation, some sort of adaptation. Gate 11, the gate of ideas. The gate of ideas is the conceptual possibility that emerges from the difficult task of realizing. Ideas are not a prescription for action. They are stimulation for reflection. It sounds like a lot. I think it's best just to go straight to the summary slide. I'm going to cover all this in English language here right now. All right. Now we talked about cohesion in the confusion, but the focus is on the cohesion and the fellowship and the uniting and unified group and purpose. You know, this implies sort of a war. Yeah, there's wars going on underneath. I don't know if it's necessarily military yet, but you know what? I forgot something. Holy cow. Hold on. I forgot something. You might have noticed it. I forgot to mention this thing. This thing seems big to me. The Pentagon is planning to cut most of military support it provides to the CIA's counterterrorism missions by January 5th. And that harkens back to the Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius. It's less secrecy. CIA's counterterrorism mission. That's a big one. And that's happening this week as well. All right, back to summary slide. Cohesion, togetherness, unified group, and it brings success. And your risk is reduced this week by being in a unified group with the highest ideals that match your values. All right, so go do that. Be a part of it. Now, here's the solution. The I-Ching 13 says fellowship, bonds unite, high ideals, diverse skills. Rave said gate 3, gate of ordering. Individual expression equals cultural mutation. That's a big one. Individual expression equals cultural mutation. All right, we're going to deal with this here in a second. Gate of ideas, allow ideas to percolate and instruct, but don't build all your actions off of just new ideas. We're going to cover that as well. The Sidereal says Ophiuchus, the healer, trying new things, break routines, humor, etc. We've had a couple of Ophiuchus recently. So here's the overall triangulation. Freedom of expression, but from within the unified group. Find your group, find your tribe, be a part of your tribe, be active, be engaged in it. Even if you can't physically be there, be engaged. Make sure your group has the highest of ideals and values, and build bonds. Build the bond. This is the week to do it. Individual expression is highly called for this week in the rave. However, action should not be created from new ideas, not just from the mental aptitude in and of itself. Individual expression should match the group ideals, but make sure that you're not doing any behavior to get acceptance, to get validated, or for conformity. That's not what we're looking for. We're in the age of Aquarius. We will act for ourselves in the freedom of individuality. But because our values and ideals are so similar to the groups, they just happen to match fairly well. All action is for modeling the new social metamorphosis, according to the Rave Mandala. Now we go full circle back to the freedom of expression with Ophiuchus. Trying new things opens Rave Gate 11. Break your routine captures the Lilith-Uranus conjunction, but remember that was at the beginning of the week. So breaking your routine could enhance your ability to sort of have a sense of control over the Lilith-Uranus conjunction, because otherwise change is going to be thrown at you. I mean, it's going to be thrown at you anyway, but this breaking your routine purposefully, consciously, could be giving your psyche a sense of control over your situation. Avoid the poisonous, vengeful, hateful tongue of Ophiuchus. It can spit violence, and don't do it, okay? Honor each other's freedom of expression, but also stand for your highest values and ideals. Big week. I wish all of you Happy New Year. Way to go getting through 2020. It's been the most challenging year in foreseeable past. And I think that we have a possibility, it could go bad, 2021, but I think we have a possibility of really kickstarting a wonderful year. I think it might get a little painful first. January doesn't look all that pleasant from the astrology standpoint, but what's on the other side of it? We create it together. That's why it's important to get with the group. Not just any group, the one that matches your ideals, the highest of ideals. Build some bonds, and then freely express from an individual place of freedom. All right? Go do it. Thanks for all your comments. Thanks for all your shares. It really does help the channel. Every one of you is helping the channel. I can't be more grateful. Thank you. And welcome to 2021. We'll see you on the 6th, talking about the week beyond. Take care, everybody.